What's up, guys? We are back with another ThunderCats Wave 2 Ultimates figure, taking a look at the fourth and final in the wave. We're taking a look at Pumyra, and of course she holds a special spot in terms of the line in general because she is one of the original figures that Mattel did. She is the last one that we have announced as getting a redo. So we don't know when we're getting the Thunder Kittens. I mean, they're obviously coming, right? But I don't know anything you don't. So for now, she is it. She, of course, comes in our standard Ultimate style box. So black silk cover with the ThunderCats logo embossed on the front. You got the logo on the back. And then you can pop that off. And then, of course, you've got her there in the big window. All of her accessories. And then the back of the box gives you a nice shot of artwork as well as a bio for Pumyra. So let's do it. Let's pull her out and take a look. And here we go. Out of the package, our ThunderCats Ultimates Pumyra. This figure, again, kind of occupies one of those special spots in the line because if you've been collecting these since the beginning, beginning being the Mattel days, you likely already have her. So she is one that Super7, is getting back out for folks who didn't have her back then. And then, of course, she does have a few changes, some good, some not good. The big thing about this figure is that she was always too tall. So the assumption is that she should be fixed here and should be a little bit smaller. She is a little bit smaller. I don't know if the problem is truly fixed, but we'll do a lineup and see what's going on. Of course, we're going to take a look and see how she moves, what she can do, all that good stuff. She is almost identical to the Pumyra from Mattel. However, they did change her up in one very specific way. So to start, we've got her head. It doesn't really do much. She bobbles around. The hair really gets in the way for her. You've got full rotation, but the hair, again, is going to get in the way. Arms all the way out at the shoulder. Of course, they're going to rotate. You've got your bicep swivel, single jointed elbow. No rotation on these, though. We've got hinges, rotation at the wrist there. So pretty normal. And then this is where she's different. She gets a diaphragm swivel. It's not like, one that has tilt or anything. It's not a ball peg up in there, as best I can tell. There's no clearance forward, backward, or side to side. It's literally just a twist. It's really weird. And then she's still got the waist twist from the Mattel days. So she has two torso swivels to do something, I don't know, something like that if you really wanted to. I'm not really sure what the intended purpose is for that, but she does have extra articulation. Legs go out really far. The skirt is pretty pliable. Kick forward all the way. Backwards a good bit too if you need to, and then you've got your thigh twist up there. Single jointed, rotating knees. Of course she is pinless now. She was a pinned figure from Mattel. And then you've got really good rocker. I mean, there's nothing getting in the way there, and then you've got really good ankle hinge also. So she's still exactly the same, basically. I don't know how much added movement this torso swivel is going to afford, but more is more, so it is definitely different. It has been changed. I feel like one of the things that definitely stands out different for this figure is that some of the joints do seem a little bit tighter. Not in a negative way, just as in a not as loose way as the Mattel ones. Specifically the ankles, they're really, really solid on this figure. And I know that mine now, and when she was relatively new, was still on the loose side. Now, as far as aesthetics go, I'm pretty happy with this figure. However, like a lot of figures in this wave, she has some oddities about her, especially when we compare her to the Mattel figure. So one of the big things that was going on with this particular character, with this figure in that line, was that she was too tall. She should not be taller than lynx-o, and this figure is in some ways changed to kind of accommodate that. I'm assuming there's like a leg change when it comes to the figure based on how things sort of line up. She's a little bit smaller. I don't know that she's accurately smaller, but they have gotten her going closer to the right direction. So that's a positive. We'll do some size comparisons here in a minute and check her out with the other Pumyra and, of course, lynx-o. But one of the big things about this figure is that she's a different color. Like, she's not the same. There are differences in her skin tone, in her actual outfit, and then in her boots and the little clasp on her shoulder. Her hair is also a different color, but it's actually a little bit lighter. So there are a bunch of differences, and then we've got face paint differences too. I'm not so sure that I'm upset about the way she looks paint-wise. I think the colors actually look nice. They look pretty decent with a slightly muted tone. We do, of course, have the asymmetrical bracer on her arm that's done up with some nice gold paint. I do like that. The Cats logo is really cleanly painted on her chest, very crisp. And then, of course, she does have this extra cut for whatever reason. It doesn't really impede her. Like, that's why it's kind of such a weird joint. Usually something like that would have a weird cut to it because you'd want it to move more, but this just swivels, so it's almost seamless in how it was done, which is really odd. She does have the little satchel, the little pouch on her skirt. It's attached, but it looks good. Sculpt is nice. This is also lighter in some ways, I believe. No, it's a little bit darker than the Mattel one. And then the whipcord on her is darker as well. This, however, presents another change that I wasn't aware of, and this is that it's attached to her. So the Mattel figure, this comes off because this is her weapon. She takes it off and she uses it. So if it's on her waist, it should also be in her hand and vice versa. So it's glued together where they cinch at the waist. That's where the peg should be. And then there is a little contact point here on her skirt. So this does not come off now, which, I mean, visually for like a vanilla pose like that, I think it looks fine because it sits on her really nicely. But it's not correct if she's holding the weapon also. So I'm a little bit disappointed in that, especially because I didn't know that that was going to be a thing. And then she also has the same head sculpt as the Mattel figure, but there are differences in paint here as well. So like I said, the brown in her hair is a little bit more like chocolatey brown. It's darker on the Mattel figure, and then her eyes are different here. She's got like bug eyes almost. I don't think the shape for the eyes was intentional. I think that was a mistake that wasn't corrected. And then she's also got some pretty dark face paint in comparison also. I have never been the biggest fan of this head sculpt, even with Mattel. I don't care for it. It's really like pinched in and kind of elongated. I think the other head sculpt we got with this figure is much, much improved. So it's going to be an instance where I go with the alt head. So she is very, very similar to the Mattel figure, but of course, very different too. And then here's our comparison to illustrate that. So I think the first thing we can see right off the bat, this figure is a little bit taller. It's minor. It's super minor, but she does sit from the waist down. She's a different figure for sure in terms of overall height, because the skirt is a lower point on this figure than on the older figure. So something about the legs does seem to have been changed a bit. And then you can see some of the subtle differences in terms of color scheme, and not to mention the face paint. So I'm really happy with the sizing on this. I mean, she's maybe not perfect. I do think there might be a little bit more room to go on her, but just the act of her being smaller makes this one a better figure. And then of course we do lose the unsightly pegs that are in the arms and the legs, since our new figure is pinless. But you can get an idea of what is similar, what's different. They're very, very close in many ways. But I do think I prefer the face on the Mattel figure a little bit better, but I think I like the body and the overall proportioning of Pumyra a lot better with Super 7. And then, of course, we've got our vintage to compare against, and Pumyra has some weirdness going on when it comes to her figure. Colors are, of course, really different. She's got a lot more bright red, and then she, of course, looks like an alien. So, yeah, there's a night and day difference here. This is just really to illustrate what she looked like 30 plus years ago compared to what she looks like today, and you can see that they are very different. I would, however, very much be on board to get a variant that looks like this with the super bright paint, the red eyes, things like that, you know, especially with this hand, so I can recreate that weird pose. But yeah, she's a far cry from the vintage figure, but I think it illustrates just how different that LJN stuff could be at times. And then let's do some size comparisons with other figures and, of course, Pumyra again. So we've got new Pumyra, old Pumyra, and lynx-o here in the middle. And I think it shows exactly how different they are. It's subtle. It's not exact. I don't think it's 100% correct still, but I think it's much, much better. And when I look at them like this, lined up next to lynx-o, I think it illustrates a little bit better just how tall the Mattel version was. I mean, she was just super, super leggy. Not that the new figure still doesn't have pretty long legs for the character, but this is just plain wrong. So I do think that they would have made some improvements there. Let's move this one aside and do some other stuff. So let's give you another ThunderCat. So let's put her in the middle, and we'll go with her counterpart from Wave 2. So here she is, or here they are with Tiger, to give you an idea what they look like together. And I think they work pretty nicely together. I do think that she is a little bit tall still, but not nearly as bad. And then let's take lynx-o away, and we will do one more ThunderCat. Of course, her, closest ThunderCat that should be compared to. We've got lynx-o here. Let's get him set up straight. And you can see that he is shorter than her, which is fine because he does skew a little bit shorter than most Thundercats. He's closer to Panthro. So I do like this. They pair pretty nicely together. And then as far as a few non-ultimates, let's take Tigra away and we will do, let's do Mythic Legion. So another 7-inch figure. And you can see, I mean, that's a good indicator because these are a little bit large and she's fairly tall compared to him. And then let's move lynx-o aside and we'll do a legend. So a 112 figure. Of course, much, much taller than Nova. And then let's go back to Ultimates and do another line, non-Thundercats. We will do a turtle. And here is Donnie. And of course, he is much, much smaller. But I think they size up pretty nicely. You know, he's got added bulk to sort of make him seem a lot bigger. So she is going to skew a little tall still. That's not completely fixed, but I think it's as close as we're ever going to get at this point. And I'm happy that they at least did make some changes so that she's not just a carbon copy in every aspect to that older figure. And then as far as accessories goes, Pumyra is very, very similar to the Mattel figure. Granted, she does get the extra head sculpt. That is, you know, a hallmark of the Ultimates. There's always an extra head in the box, well, generally. And then, of course, it does have a different expression. So this is a very, very much different compared to the more stoic expression that she has on her in the box. You know, it's almost like happy. She's got a little smile going in this head. So I'm really happy with this. It'll probably be the one I go with. I do tend to skew towards having the more expressive faces. It's been situational, but usually I go that route, and I'm definitely going this route too. I just like it. It's definitely going to work a lot better if you've got her in any kind of battle pose rather than her going into battle smiling. So that's a much improved addition to this release. We do get some extra hands. She's got the sort of gesturing poses on her in the box. We get a set of gripping hands, and then we get a set of fists also. So she does get some fists, which of course I always like to see. And then she gets a few other very specific accessories, you know, related to weaponry and then, you know, stuff that she can hold. So we get the boomerang. And this is, you know, same thing we saw with Mattel. It's a different color though. So this is, it's like more gunmetal-y rather than closer to silver. They're very, very similar. They're just not the same. And then we get her whipcord. This, of course, has the little pellets in there. And again, you know, this is supposed to be what is her belt. So it's wrapped around her, and then she takes it off to use it. But, of course, can't take it off on this figure. So that's definitely a bummer. But this is basically the same thing we got with Mattel also. And then she gets a treasure of Thundera. So she gets the totem of Dara. It's done up in really floppy plastic, which I don't know if that's a big deal or not, but it's worth mentioning. And then you've got some gold metallic with just the silver, with the blue, not silver, blue up there on the top. So of course that kind of adds to some of the sort of ongoing treasures of Thundera that we have gotten in the line. So, you know, again, very similar to what we got with Mattel. So if you've already had this figure, you kind of know what to expect. But she does come with a pretty solid array, multiple weapons, one of the more deep cut accessories. And then of course we get a new, and my preference, alternate head sculpt. So overall, Pumyra is a pretty solid entry in the line. She does, of course, have a number of changes from the Mattel version, mostly coming down to deco, and then, of course, she does have a little bit of an articulation change up, but the colors are darker, that whipcord can't be removed, which I do think is a definite negative. That's a step backwards for sure, but the pinless joints on this figure put her more in line with the go-forward aesthetic for Thundercats, so I'm really happy with that. Colors are a little bit dimmer, but they do look really nice. They're very saturated and well done. Very clean and crisp as well. No real issues to speak of there. And then I do really like the alternate head sculpt. I like the fact that she has fists, and I like the fact that she gets one of those deep cut accessories to go along with her weaponry as well. The big thing for me, of course, ultimately is that they did manage to make her a slight bit smaller. I still don't think it's perfect, but I'm happy that she's nowhere near as tall. Again, I'm really happy that she's not just literally a carbon copy of that same figure, but that there were some changes made to not only make her unique, but help make her better. So that's going to do it for this look at the Super 7 Ultimates Thundercats Wave 2 Pumyra. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.